Americans are strong and always ready to stand firm for a good cause. We treasure justice, fairness, family, honesty, and human dignity, unlike societies based on class, clan, or tribe. We see every citizen as an individual, equal under the law and equal under the eyes of the Lord. In America, we speak English because that is the language of our founding, and for 1,000 years, that has been the language of freedom. An American always wants peace and order, but we will never shrink from danger or threat. We will always fight, 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 and win, win, win. We got to do that. Because this is our culture, this is our character. Not every American is all of these things, but every American knows these are the traits that make our country exceptional, and exceptional it is. You do not have to be born here, but you do have to love what we have built. You must love our country. There has never been anything like us anywhere on earth, and we are not going to let anyone take that away. Yet as we approach this magnificent anniversary, we see our American identity under a renewed attack. A generation after we fought and won the Cold War against the menace of communism, there is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success. These are not mere political disagreements like differences over taxes or regulations. Communism is a mortal threat to American liberty. It is the greatest threat to our country, including World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, or even 9/11. We're not going to let this happen to us. Believe me, we're not letting it happen. Because communism is the enemy of free people everywhere in the world. Never works. It's the enemy of the Constitution. Above all, it's the enemy of July 4th, 1776. It is the enemy indeed. Even while the radicals and extremists attack our incredible history at every turn, they are silent on the miserable history of communism itself, because it never worked. Thousands of years, if you look at it, under different names, under somewhat different ideologies and systems, that system has led to more death and destruction than any system ever tried. It killed 100 million people just in the last century alone. Communism is the exact opposite of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's death, tyranny, and the pursuit of evil. The godless communist morality states that anything is justified to bring about inhuman visions and to really propose what's good. They don't want good. They don't love God, and they don't want God. They don't love religion, and they don't want religion, and they won't have it. But we will not let them win. They have no chance against us. They have no respect for law, justice, principle, tradition, or your God-given rights. It's an ideology of mass theft, mass control, mass lies, and mass murder. Such doctrines can be given no quarter in a democracy, because the first thing they do when they get into power is turn around and destroy it. It always is destroyed, just as communists have done in other countries all over the world, no matter where you look. Very simply, communism represents the worst ideas and abuses in history by the worst people. The American founding represents the best ideas and traditions in history by the best people like you. You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both. As for those who peddle Marxist lies about our heritage, or tell our children that we live on stolen land, or that our heroes were oppressors, they're doing something much worse than slandering our past. They are slandering and attacking our future. Not going to let that happen. They're trying to tear down the great American character, to destroy the people who declared independence, who crossed the Delaware, who settled the West, and who conquered the skies. You know who those people are. But we will never let that happen. Our American ancestors did not shed their blood at Concord and Trenton, Gettysburg and Shiloh, Midway and Normandy, just so that a band of thieves, radicals, and lunatics could come in and loot, pillage our nation. Our heroes died to win, build, and to save, and to build truly a great country, the greatest country ever in the world. So on the eve of this 250th anniversary of American heritage, we resolve and swear for all to hear that the citizens of the United States of America will vanquish communism quickly. Don't let them take too much of your time. You know they're wasting your time, don't you? But we're not going to let them take too long or too much of our time as they play their games and send them into exile. We will send them quickly away, and we will continue to build our country bigger and better and stronger than ever before. America will never be a communist country. We can only lose the midterms if we allow ourselves to lose the midterms, if we are foolish, stupid, and unwise. But if we terminate the filibuster, as we should do, and immediately vote for the Save America Act, then we will not lose an election for 100 years. We do that, we're not going to lose an election for 100 years. The Communist Party is made up of illegal immigrants, criminals, and everybody that doesn't want to work. Communism is a loser. It always was, and it is right now. It's a big loser. Look at the people that are promoting it. They are not the people you're going to follow. In 250 years, the free people of this land have accomplished more with our liberty than any other society has accomplished, even in thousands and thousands of years. As you look back and you study, what our critics will never understand is that America is not the sum of its mistakes. Our mistakes make us human. Our achievements make us American, and nobody has ever had the achievements that we've had. We are the nation that dreamed and created the modern world. We laid the railroads. We raised up those big, beautiful skyscrapers, harnessed electricity, and invented the light bulb, the telephone, the airplane, the assembly line, the television, the microchip, the personal computer, the internet, the GPS, the smartphone, and almost everything else that has ever been invented, including, especially over the last few days in certain areas, a thing called air conditioning. We invented it all. We charted the human genome, cured diseases. We powered entire cities by splitting single atoms and planted our flag on the moon. Americans fill the airwaves of the planet with our music and our culture. We invented baseball, basketball, football, volleyball, NASCAR, and the rodeo. We love that rodeo of the West. Americans have won the most Olympic medals of any country in the world by far, the most Nobel Prizes. Well, they haven't given me one. Settled 8 wars, I still haven't gotten it. That's okay. And the most world records. We publish by far the most patents. We produce the best movies. We make the best music. And we raise up the greatest entertainers and strongest athletes the world has ever seen. So true.
Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage, intelligence gathering, looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid of society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place, and
yes,
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people, and the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. They will join the links of dissenters, dissidents.
Yes.
Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality back to normalcy and patriotism. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C. with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins, never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in a state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system. And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system or the world communist conspiracy, whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to, unless you want to live in Antarctica with penguins. This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state, big brother government. If people will fail to grasp the impending danger of that development. Nothing ever can help United States. You may kiss goodbye to your freedom, including freedoms to homosexuals, to prison inmate. All this freedom will vanish, evaporate in 5 seconds, including your precious lives. The second thing, the moment at least part of the United States population is convinced that the danger is real, they have to force their government. And I'm not talking about sending letters, signing petitions, and all this beautiful, noble activity. I'm talking about forcing United States government to stop aiding communism. Because there is no other problem more burning and urgent than to stop the Soviet military-industrial complex from destroying whatever is left of the free world. And it is very easy to do. No credits, no technology, no money, no political or diplomatic recognition, and of course no such idiocy as grain deals to USSR. The Soviet people, 270 millions of Soviets, will be eternally thankful to you if you stop aiding a bunch of murderers who sit now in Kremlin and whom President Reagan respectfully calls government. They do not govern anything, least of all such complexity as the Soviet economy. So basic, two very simple, maybe too simplistic answers or solutions, but nevertheless they are the only solutions. Educate yourself, understand what's going on around you. You are not living at a time of peace. You are in a state of war, and you have precious little time to save yourself. You don't have much time, especially if you are talking about young generation. There's not much time left for convulsions to the beautiful disco music. Very soon it will go, just overnight. If we are talking about capitalists or wealthy businessmen, I think they are selling the rope on which they will hang very soon. If they don't stop, if they cannot curb their unsettled desire for profit, and if they keep on trading with the monster of the Soviet communism, they are going to hang very soon. And they will pray to be killed, but unfortunately they will be sent to Alaska probably to manage industry of slaves. It's simplistic. I know it sounds unpleasant. I know Americans don't like to listen to things which are unpleasant. But I have defected not to tell you the stories about such idiocies as microfilm, James Bond type espionage. This is garbage. You don't need any espionage anymore. I have come to talk about survival. It's a question of survival of this system. You may ask me, what is it for me? Survival, obviously, because unlike, as I said, I am now in your boat. If we sing together, we'll sing beautifully together. There is no other place on this planet to defect to.
Attention all planets of the Solar Federation, this is the Anti-Marxist Magnum.
All right. Welcome to the first episode of the Anti-Marxist Magnum. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the opening salvo on what I intend to be a sustained, unflinching examination of an ideology that has shaped and, in my view, distorted the modern world. I know many of you are tuning in with curiosity, skepticism, or even hostility. And that's fine. I welcome that. Because if this ideology is as robust as its defenders claim it to be. It should be able to withstand hard questions. But I'm not here to play defense. I'm here to go in on the offensive, intellectually, historically, and philosophically. So let's begin with the roots of Marxism itself. And I mean the very roots, the soil, the climate, the intellectual ecosystem that gave birth to this worldview. We have to go back to the 19th century, to a Europe in upheaval, to a Germany that was industrializing late and recklessly, to a young philosopher named Karl Marx, who was as much a prophet as he was a scholar. Its foundation, at its core, was messianic communism. That word messianic is not an exaggeration. Marx wasn't writing dry economic treatises in some ivory tower or something. He was writing with the fervor of a zealot who believed he had unlocked the inevitable law of human history. He saw himself as a scientific socialist. But the science was always in service of a redemptive, almost religious vision of a total human emancipation. Marx was not just an economist or a philosopher. He was a system builder. A grand theorist who tried to synthesize German philosophy, French politics, and British economics into one sweeping narrative. More than that, he was a man possessed by a vision. He was devoted to a vision of a violent, worldwide revolution that would be carried out by the oppressed proletariat, the working class. He didn't mince words about the violence. The Communist Manifesto, he and Engels openly celebrated the revolutionary force that would drown the old order in blood if necessary. This wasn't a metaphor, understand. This was a call to arms. This revolution would usher in his version of a new age, communism. Not a gradual evolution, not a parliamentary road to socialism, but a cataclysmic break from all previous history. A dictatorship of the proletariat, which would eventually wither away into a classless, stateless utopia, at least in theory. That's the starting point. And it's crucial to hold that starting point firmly in mind because everything else flows from it. Not a gentle reform government, not a progressive tax code, not a few new regulations on Wall Street. This wasn't a tweak to capitalism, not a kinder, gentler version of the market system. A total global overthrow. Then this is what these commies want to do to this day. Mondami and others, this is the same ideology. A complete dismantling of private property, of inheritance, of wage labor as we know it, of the family structure, of religion, of every intermediate institution that stands between the individual and the all-powerful state. And this is exactly the aim of communists today. You might hear them use different language, when they talk about systemic change or structural transformation or de-commodification, but when you peel back the euphemisms, it's really just the same stuff. The abolition of capitalism and the concentration of all economic and political power in the hands of the collective, administered by a party that claims to speak for all people. It's just patently false. For more than 150 years, Marx's ideas have shaped political movements around the world. That's not a trivial span of time. That's 6 generations of activists, intellectuals, revolutionaries, and dictators who have all drawn from the same well. The longevity of Marxism itself is a testament to its seductive power. It offers a simple, elegant explanation for inequality, exploitation, and alienation. And it promises a clear path to redemption. We've seen Marxist-inspired workers' organizations in Europe and the US in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The Socialist Labor Party, the industrial workers of the world, the myriad trade unions that split over whether to work within the system or smash it entirely. All of them owed some debt to Marx's analysis of class struggle. We've seen the rise of Marxist-Leninist regimes in the Soviet Union. Well, Lee Harvey Oswald called himself a Marxist-Leninist. Yeah, it's true. That was the first great experiment. The first time that Marxist theory was actually applied to the governance of a vast, multi-ethnic empire. And what did it produce? Same thing that ideology always produces. Famine, terror, gulags, and a bureaucratic tyranny that made the czars look like libertarians by comparison. We've all seen anti-colonial struggles in Vietnam, Angola, and Mozambique draw from Marxist theory. In each one, Marxism provided a language of liberation from Western imperialism, but also a blueprint for one-party rule. And that's exactly what these people want to do today. State-controlled economies and the suppression of dissent in the name of the revolutionary vanguard. And what do all these experiments have in common? Well, if you look past the local costumes and the different historical circumstances, a pattern emerges. A grim, repetitive pattern. They all promised liberation. They promised the end of exploitation, the end of poverty, the end of class distinctions. They all delivered something else entirely. They delivered scarcity, surveillance, secret police, and a new ruling class that was far more ruthless than the bourgeoisie that they had overthrown. The Soviet Union collapsed, not because of external pressure alone, but because its internal contradictions, the very contradictions that Marx thought only capitalism suffered from, it just became unsustainable. The planned economy couldn't feed its own people. The ideology couldn't survive the reality of empty store shelves. We're already seeing this happen in New York with Mondami. China and Vietnam pivoted to market capitalism. They didn't abandon the party's monopoly on power, but they abandoned the core economic tenets of Marxism because those tenets led them to starvation and stagnation. They became state capitalist hybrids, not communist utopias. These weren't victories for Marxism. They were admissions that the ideology just doesn't deliver on its promises. It never does, never has, never will. And yet, remarkably, this ideology persists. Why? Because failure, for true believers, is never a refutation, it's a betrayal. The revolution was never pure enough. The leadership was never faithful enough. The conditions were just never ripe enough. There's always an excuse, always a scapegoat, always a reason to give it another try. But Marxism didn't disappear. It morphed. It adapted. And adaptation is the hallmark of a survivor. When the old forms become discredited, Marxism shed its Soviet skin and found new hosts in universities, cultural studies, in identity politics, in environmental activism and phony climate change hysteria, in the language of decolonization. It morphed from a crude economic determinism into a more sophisticated critique of power, language, and knowledge itself. By the late 20th century, Marxism had been, declared dead by many. Francis Fukuyama famously proclaimed the end of history, the triumph of liberal democracy and market capitalism as the final form of human governance. For a brief moment in the 1990s, it seemed that the intellectual battle was over. Neoclassical economists and liberal theorists were triumphant. They pointed to the Washington Consensus, to globalization, to the tech boom, all as evidence that the market, not the planner, was the engine of prosperity. There was supposedly no alternative to neoliberalism. Margaret Thatcher's famous mantra, "There is no alternative," seemed to, it seemed to have been vindicated by the sheer weight of the happenings, events, But here's the thing. Ideas don't stay dead. They go underground. They wait. They bide their time in obscure journals and graduate seminars until the next crisis opens the door. This really happens, especially when, there's times when capitalism stumbles. And capitalism does stumble. Not because it's doomed to collapse, as Marx predicted, but because it's a human system. And humans are imperfect and fallible. Financial panics, asset bubbles, speculative frenzies. These are not the death throes of capitalism, but they are the growing pains of a dynamic system. But to a waiting Marxist, they look like vindication. The 2008 financial crisis, brought on largely by Barack Obama, the economic inequality and growing social unrest all brought people back to Marx's critique of capitalism. Suddenly a new generation was reading Capital again. Not because they had to for a class, but because they were searching for answers to a system that seemed rigged against them. They found in Marx a vocabulary for their anger, a framework for their frustration, and a target for their resentment. As historian Andrew Hartman put in his Karl Marx in America book, the U.S. has gone through waves of interest in Marx. And he serves as kind of a testing device for Americans trying to make sense of their times, whether they be on the left or the right, or might be somewhere in the middle. I wouldn't say I'm somewhere in the middle. I'd say I always saw myself as a centrist. I'm definitely on the right side of things now. There's not a shred of me that's to the left of anything. I just want to say that up front. In the past, though, I did consider myself more of a centrist than anything else, but that all ended with Joe Biden. I got behind Trump in 2024 because it was our only hope, it was our only chance to take on not only Biden and Harris, but the worst things that were going to be worse than them that was coming right behind them. That was, So, yeah, I've only been, I've always considered myself a centrist more than anything else. I've never voted for any president, any candidate, but over the last few years, with all this Marxism, communism stuff, they, like me, like a ton of other people, like I'm alone here, were pushed to the right, from the center to the right, because of these policies and these agendas. Simple as that. Marx isn't just for communists anymore. He's a diagnostic tool. Even people who reject his solutions often borrow his analysis. Think about it. When you hear someone talk about the 1% versus the 99%, that's a Marxist frame. And I've heard people on the right using that same frame before. But that comes from Marx. Whether they know it or not, they probably don't. Then you hear about structural inequality or systemic racism. Those categories are soaked in Marxist assumptions about power, class, and so-called exploitation. The language has become so normalized that most people don't even recognize its origins. Now let's fast forward to the 21st century, modern day. Marxism didn't just survive. It showed up in your city council meetings. Not in the form of street barricades or stuff like that, but in the form of resolutions, budget hearings, and municipal ordinances. It traded the guillotine for a gavel. And that made it all the more dangerous, because it became respectable. Consider Seattle. Between 2014 and 2024, the city served as kind of a laboratory for Marxist political strategy. This came about with the election of Cashapp-reevesradio, a member of the Socialist Alternative Party, to the Seattle City Council. She wasn't some fringe figure ignored by the media. She was a lightning rod, a focal point for a national conversation about the role of socialism in urban governance. And she didn't just talk, she acted. Her organization took on Amazon, Starbucks, and the political establishment. They didn't just protest outside corporate headquarters. They introduced legislation, mobilized voters, and used the levers of municipal power to extract concessions from some of the most powerful companies in the world. They want a $15 minimum wage. They passed a tax on Amazon to fund social housing and enacted renters' rights legislation. Each of those victories was framed as a moral imperative: fairness, justice, and affordability. But the underlying engine was a classic Marxist analysis. Capital is concentrated, labor is exploited, and the state must intervene to rebalance the scales. Never mind that the $15 minimum wage led to reduced hours for some workers. No, they don't care about that. Or that the Amazon tax was later scaled back after legal challenges. The narrative of socialist victory was all that mattered. Her strategy leaned into the lessons of Marxist theorists over the last 75 years. She studied the history of workers' movements, the tactics of agitation, the importance of building a party apparatus, the need for uncompromising demands. She didn't invent anything new. She just applied the old playbook to tech-driven 21st century Seattle. And it worked. Well, for about 10 years. She won re-election. She built a following. She became a national symbol of the socialist revival. And even after she left office, the institutional changes that she helped set in motion remained in place. A lasting monument to a decade of Marxist influence in the Pacific Northwest. That's modern Marxism in action. Not a revolution in the streets. A revolution in the halls of power. One ordinance at a time. It's incremental. Patient. Tactical. It's the long con. And that's one of the best words for Marxism and socialism. It's a long con. That's what it is. Not designed to happen immediately. It's designed to happen slowly. So that people don't notice. People notice an overnight revolution. They don't notice incrementalism. And that is really the defining modus operandi of socialism. It doesn't try to seize the Winter Palace. It tries to seize the zoning board. It doesn't declare a dictatorship of the proletariat. It declares a housing emergency and then uses that emergency to expand state control. The ends are the same. The means have been refined through generations of trial and error. But it's not just Seattle. Look at New York. In November 2025, Zohan Mondani, Marxist Mondani, an avowed socialist, was elected mayor of America's largest city. This was not a symbolic victory. This was the real thing. A self-identified socialist taking the helm of a financial capital of the world. The city that never sleeps. The epicenter of global capitalism. The shockwaves were felt from Wall Street to Washington. House Speaker Mike Johnson called it the biggest win for socialism in the history of the country. And he wasn't exaggerating for effect. No previous socialist has ever won an office of this magnitude in the United States. Not Eugene Debs, not Norman Thomas, not even the most progressive New Dealers. This was unprecedented. And it's not just a local phenomenon. National Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries and Chucky Schumer, asshats they are, they've all embraced the socialist agenda, though. They may not call themselves socialists openly, but they have adopted the policies. Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, free college tuition, rent control, wealth taxes, and lots more. The line between mainstream liberalism and democratic socialism has become so blurred that it's almost impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins anymore. Even President Obama reportedly called Mondani to offer his advice and support. Think about that. A former president, a man who represented the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, personally reaching out to an avowed socialist mayor-elect. That tells you how much the Overton window has shifted. What used to be fringe is now mainstream. Ideas that were considered radical just a decade ago, abolishing private health insurance, decriminalizing illegal border crossings, defunding the police, imposing rent control on a massive scale. These are now debated in polite company as if they were mere administrative tweaks. That is the power of ideological momentum, ladies and gentlemen. So here's where I land. Marxism isn't dead. It's not a relic of the Cold War. It's not a footnote in in the history books of failed experiments. It's not a curiosity for antiquarians. It's not some dusty book in a library. It's not gathering cobwebs on a shelf in some forgotten corner of an academic basement. Now, in 2026, it's a living ideology that has evolved, adapted, and found new ways to influence policy, politics, and public opinion. It's mutated, hybridized, and reinvented itself so many times that its current form would be almost unrecognizable to Marx himself. Truly. But the DNA remains the same. The primacy of class, the necessity of collective action, the hostility to private property, and the faith in state power as the ultimate instrument of liberation. All bullshit. From the streets of Seattle to the mayor's office in New York, from college campuses to Capitol Hill, Marxism is a threat to the individual liberty and free enterprise that made the United States of America so great. And I say that not as a slogan, but as a sober assessment of the historical record. Every society that has embraced Marxism has ended up poorer, less free, and more brutal than the regime that it replaced. The correlation is not accidental. It's casual. Now I want to pause here and say something important. I'm not against people who call themselves socialists. I know many of them personally. I respect their sincerity, their passion, their desire to make the world a better place in their minds. That's what they really wanted. Some of these people like this have been my friends in the past. I don't question their motives. I question their premises. I'm against the ideology. I'm against the intellectual framework that leads well-meaning people to support disastrous policies. I'm against the belief that the state should own the means of production, that class struggle should replace the individual achievement, and that collectivism should trump personal freedom. These aren't just abstract philosophical disagreements. They have concrete consequences for every aspect of our lives. Our jobs, our homes, our schools, our families, our faith communities. There's a difference between criticizing an idea and attacking a person. I'm here to go after the idea. And I will do so rigorously, relentlessly, and respectfully. I will not name call. I will not demonize. I will not engage in conspiracy theories. That's the other show where I do that. I will simply present you with evidence, make the arguments, and let you decide on your own. That's what I've always done with my conspiracy stuff for the last 20 years. I just present the information, and if you agree with me, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But 100% of the time, my goal is the truth. In the coming weeks, we'll dig deeper into specific examples, cultural Marxism, academic Marxism, the economic policies being pushed in city councils and state legislatures. We'll look at how Marxism has infiltrated the humanities, the social sciences, the public schools, the media, and even the corporate boardrooms that once opposed it. We'll examine the strategies, the funding, the networks, and the long-term goals of the movement. We'll look at the history, the theory, and its real-world consequences. We'll test the claims against the facts. We'll compare the promises with the outcomes. We'll hold the ideology up to the light and see what it's really made of. But I'll leave you with this. Karl Marx himself said that religion is the opiate of the masses. I'd argue that Marxism is the opiate of the intelligentsia. It gives them a sense of moral superiority, a feeling of historical inevitability, a comforting narrative that explains all their frustrations and absolves them of all personal responsibility. It's a drug that makes them feel brilliant, all the while numbing them to reality. Listen, it's a seductive theory. It promises to explain everything, and yet it delivers nothing. Ever. Well, that's not true. It delivers more government, less freedom, and a whole lot of misery for the people that claims to help. That's 100% true. And the tragedy is that the people that claims to help, the workers, the poor, the marginalized, they're always the ones who suffer the most when the theory is applied. They are the raw material for the experiment. And they are the first to be discarded when that experiment fails. It's happened everywhere it's ever been tried, folks. I felt it very important to do this show today on the 250th birthday of America. This is when I wanted to launch this, and I thank you all for being with me for episode 1 of the Anti-Marxist Magnum. I'm one man, and I don't have corporate funding. We hopefully will get some sponsors in the coming weeks. But until then, and always, we're going to need the support of you, the listener. You can find all the ways to donate, and if you want to buy the films of my previous work, you can do that as well. We're actually having a 4th of July sale until Monday night at midnight. If you use the code FREEDOM at checkout in my download store, you can get 25% off of everything, including the 500. It's normally $500. It's the 125 film collection. All 125 of my films. At $4 each when you buy the full 125 film collection for $500. If you use that code FREEDOM at checkout, you can get the full 125 film Josh Reeves collection for $375 until Monday at midnight, and you won't ever get that deal again. So please donate. My birthday is on Monday. It's America's 250th birthday today, but in 2 days from now, it's Josh Reeves' 50th anniversary. Yeah, I turned 50 on Monday, guys. So you want to throw a little at me, Reeves Radio on the Cash App. It's Reeves Radio, all lowercase, one word, Reeves Radio on the Cash App. And dayglow76 at yahoo.com on PayPal. Just check the first link of the comments on any of my videos, and you'll always be able to find all the ways to support our work right there, okay? Yeah, I'd like to go get my favorite meal in Dallas on Monday. Oh, the veal parmesan at Camp Easy's. Oh, that's my favorite. Anyway, listen, guys, I'm fucking so excited to be here with you guys doing this, and we're going to take these fuckers on, and they're not going to bring down America. We're going to bring them down. This is the Anti-Marxist Magnum. Big truths, clear opposition. That's our brand. That's our commitment. And I will not compromise. I will not apologize for defending liberty against the encroachments of collectivism. Next week, we're going to dive into the history of the American labor movement and how Marxists tried to hijack it. We'll tell the story of brave workers who fought for fair wages and safe conditions, and the ideological parasites who try to turn their struggle into a stepping stone for a revolution. It's a story of betrayal, manipulation, and missed opportunities. And it's essential to understanding where we are today. This has been the Anti-Marxist Magnum. We'll see you next week. Until then, stay free, stay skeptical, never stop asking questions. Because the moment you stop asking questions is the moment that you become a subject, not a citizen. I meant to say so. I got tongue-tied there. Let me do that again. Listen, the moment that you stop asking questions is the moment that you become a subject, not a citizen. And this show is for citizens. Free and free-thinking, questioning citizens who refuse to surrender their minds to any doctrine, no matter how elegantly dressed or well-spoken that doctrine may be. God bless you all. We'll see you next week.